existence and non-existence, mind and no mind, form and formlessness, real and unreal. Where do they meet? There are several old stories. When we put them together, ask a very cogent question relative to our inquiry as to the ability to answer this question. The first is about that seeker after truth who learned of a learned and esteemed guru. So he found his way to this master and asked the master, "Please, can you teach me truth?" And the master said, "Yes, I can teach you truth, but first you have to go on a quest to find the happiest man in the world and bring him to me." So the seeker after truth set out to fulfill his master's order, and his quest took him to many places, and everywhere he went he inquired, "Can you tell me where I can find the happiest man in the world?" And inevitably, when he met this person, it was found that their idea of happiness was a thing of the mind. And when they had an idea of what happiness was, they created it for themselves. So our seeker intuitively knew that this was illusory. The thought of happiness, the interpretation of happiness was different for everyone he met. But finally, when he was almost exhausted from his seeking, he came to a village where, as was his usual bent, he asked, "Can anyone tell me where I can find the happiest man in the world?" And on this occasion, all the villagers pointed to a forest that surrounded the village. So immediately our seeker after truth went to enter that forest to find, finally, come to the end of his quest. And the strange thing was that when he entered the forest, it seemed that the trees were laughing. And the birds who were trilling, it seems that their trilling was melodious like laughter. And as he went more deeply into the forest, he began to hear the sounds of laughter, obviously coming from some being. So going deep, he came to a little clearing where there was a great tree, and under that great tree sat a man wearing a large sombrero which seemed to almost cover him, but the birds were nesting in the brim of the sombrero, and the animals were gathered around his feet, and he was laughing fit to be tied. And so, in the moments when, of course, the man had to take a bit of a breath, our seeker after truth inquired of him, Are you the happiest man in the world? And all he got was a lot of guffaws and more laughter. But then he had a moment where he babbled out to the being, my master has sent me here to find you, and I have to take you back with me to him. Well, that caused raucous laughter in this being under the tree. And he said, well, what if I don't want to go with you? Well, this totally flummoxed our seeker after truth. He could not have imagined that at the end of his quest that he could not fulfill his master's order. But just then, the sombrero covering the man's face fell, and our seeker after truth found that the man he was looking at was none other than the master who had given him the order and sent him on the quest. So our seeker was just totally surprised, and he couldn't help himself. He babbled out, well, what? If you're truth, then why did you send me on this quest? All of these adventures I've been gone for years and years and years seeking. Why did you not tell me in the beginning? And of course, that's our question. What did the master answer? But there's that other story, again about that seeker after truth. And he'd been everywhere. He'd been to masters and teachers and read the great books and all of those things. But he too had embarked on a quest because he was told that there was a certain hermit master sage who lived on the top of a mountain who could teach truth. So he sought him out, and of course, after much journeying and adventures, he came to the foot of the mountain, very steep mountain. So he had a very arduous climb ahead of him. But when he arrived at a plateau and climbed onto the plateau, sure enough, there he found an old, wizened man with a long white beard and his staff at his side, sitting outside his rough little hut and panting after his long journey and the exertion. He said to him, I'm here. I've been told that you can teach truth. Will you teach me truth? And the old man looked at him benignly and said, oh, well, you can stick around for a while if you like. You know, you can help me. We have to gather wood for the fire and cook the rice. And so it was that the young being took up residence with the old man. And indeed, he did have chores to do. They had to sow when the weather was fine, and have a few vegetables to eat. They had to gather fruit from the trees, and gather firewood and so forth. And the time passed. But every time the young being dared to ask the old man, well, Master, when are you going to teach me truth? The old man would say, not now, not now. And so the time in between the questions became longer and longer, until one day, when it had been some long while, when the question had not arisen in him, they happened to be sitting around the little fire that they made to cook their rice and vegetables. And suddenly the young man said to the old hermit, Master, why did you never teach me truth? And with that, the old man took off his straw sandal and tapped the young man on his head and said, "You mean this?" And immediately the young man knew truth. So the question is not, what is truth? But the question that arises from these two simple stories is, why the journey? Why the quest? Why the life adventures? Why the being brought to our knees and having to climb up again? Why the journey?
Because the journey is a lesson. It's like going to school, and you need to do it in order to cross to the other side.
Right on.
I just thought for the love of it.
Right.
You have to experience it